Warning, the following ZipRecruiter radio spot you are about to hear is going to be filled with F-words.
When you're hiring, we at ZipRecruiter know you can feel frustrated, forlorn even, like your efforts are futile, and you can spend a fortune trying to find fabulous people, only to get flooded with candidates who are just fine. Fortunately, ZipRecruiter figured out how to fix all that. And right now, you can try ZipRecruiter for free at ZipRecruiter.com/zip. With ZipRecruiter, you can forget your frustrations because we find the right people for your roles fast, which is our absolute favorite F word. In fact, 4 out of 5 employers who post on ZipRecruiter get a quality candidate within the first day.
Fantastic!
So, whether you need to hire 4, 40, or 400 people, get ready to meet first-rate talent. Just go to ZipRecruiter.com/zip to try ZipRecruiter for free. Don't forget, that's ZipRecruiter.com/zip. Finally, that's ZipRecruiter.com/zip.
Hello and welcome to the first episode of the Not Just the Voice podcast. I am James Schofield. I'm going to be your host along this journey. And for this first one, I guess we're just going to talk about what this podcast is going to be all about while I'm doing things that pertain to it. So, Not Just the Voice podcast. Why am I doing this and what is it about? Well, Not Just the Voice podcast is going to be really a podcast not just about the voice of voiceover, but the behind the scenes of it, the technical work that goes into it, the marketing that you're going to have to do, the just overall job of voiceover. I am just now getting into voiceover. I've been doing voiceover work for a little over a month now, and I wanted to start the podcast because, well, I want to show kind of the struggles that I've been going through. And also because I just got my first couple jobs out of voiceover. I have an audiobook that I am working on. I just finished chapter 1 yesterday. Yay! And then I'm also working on an indie animation. So I thought that this would be a good time for me to start this podcast because I do want to chronicle my journey. And if you haven't before already checked it out, on my YouTube, I already have a few things on there. I have my samples that I've worked on, but I also do kind of a little different sort of kind of vlog where I just take a walk to my local coffee shop and talk about voiceover. So this is going to be kind of an extension of that, really, where I'm just kind of a little more formal, a little more in my booth, which, full disclosure right now for the podcast, I'm doing it in bed. I hope it sounds good. I have the window open, so we'll see if the sound's coming through, but you know what? That's what I want to do. Because the other thing that I like to do is I am a nerd. I like to stress test. I like to really get into the nitty-gritty of my equipment that I use. So this is also going to be almost like an experiment because obviously I can't have the window open and I can't just be sitting here with noises everywhere for my actual work. But I do like to know what a mic can and cannot do in different situations. So right now, for instance, you know what? We'll talk about that in a little while. I'm getting ahead of myself. So why am I doing this? For a couple of reasons. I want to chronicle my journey. I want to make sure that it's documented for myself, really. And if you're listening, great. I'm so glad. This is for you too, of course. But I really just wanted to kind of keep an audio and video chronicle of what I've been doing. The other thing I'm doing this for really is so other people can notice what the struggles can be. If you're looking to get into voice acting as well, getting into voiceover work, you can maybe learn from my mistakes, learn from the issues that I've come across. Who knows, maybe get some tips and tricks that will help you in your journey. What else do I want to talk about on this initial episode? I kind of want to talk about the equipment that I'm using, right? And kind of the different ways that I'm able to get through not having a dedicated vocal booth. which, by the way, I've been watching a lot of Steve Bloom's stuff. I grew up on anime, so Steve Bloom is obviously going to be one of my heroes. Spike from Cowboy Bebop is just amazing. And I've said this before on something else I said, but Steve Bloom, when he even after Cowboy Bebop, did not consider himself a voice actor. Like, bro, you were in one of the greatest animes of all time, and you're not going to consider yourself a voice actor? I don't think so. But anyway, Steve Bloom has this vocal booth that he has built. He got a house in Hawaii, and they were constructing it, and so while they were at it, they built this vocal booth, and I am so jealous of it. It's so gorgeous. It looks amazing to be in. Like, I would actually just want to hang out in that booth. But on top of that, it's just got so many bells and whistles to do the work, which is funny because he was mentioning when they were trying to get people back. Like, even in voiceover, they were trying to get people back to the office after COVID. And, Steve, he moved. He's not in LA anymore. He's in Hawaii. And, he doesn't want to have to fly out to do voiceover all the time, right? So he kind of fought against that, and he actually sent them his work, and they came back to him being like, oh, yeah, this sounds better than anything we could do in LA. I love it. I love it. I don't have that kind of that voiceover money yet. But which naturally he would, because he's got 900 credits to his name. So naturally he can do that stuff, and he deserves it because he's amazing. But I don't have that kind of money to make a vocal booth. Shoot, I don't even have that kind of money to make a makeshift vocal booth. I'm broke. So let's go over my gear, right? Let's do that. We're going to be discombobulated. I with podcasts, I don't really plan things out, to be honest. I just hit the record button and I just hope that I get enough content to upload. But let's go over my equipment, and let's get over the different things that I've been kind of trying to do to get around some of the issues that I have being able to provide clean sound. I am a technophile, so I have a lot more different pieces of equipment that I'm not going to need necessarily, but I'll just start with what I'm doing just for the podcast. Right now, I have my Mac in front of me, sitting on my lap. It's one of the old MacBook Pros. It's the 2021, so it's got a M1 Pro built into it, 16 gigs of RAM, more than what you need for voiceover. To be honest with you, for voiceover, for podcasting, for anything really, I mean, you could get a 10-year-old laptop even. I wouldn't say to do that if you want to be able to use, a bunch of plugins and the like. But yeah, you could get a laptop from 10 years ago. Plug it in, plug in an interface, hit record. It's that simple in terms of initially getting started. There are a lot of free pieces of software out there. I used to swear by Audacity back in the day. Audacity was my jam. Still a great tool, completely free, and you can get plugins for it. They all plug in, yeah, right into Audacity, and you can pretty much get started and get work using an old laptop, an interface, a mic, and a free piece of software. It's amazing. But I'm using GarageBand just because, from a music aspect, because I play music as well. GarageBand has been kind of my go-to for that. So I use GarageBand just because I already know the interface I got to make sure I do my terms correctly, but I already know, yeah, it is an interface. I know the interface really well of GarageBand. I know, kind of its quirks. I know how to do different things on it. So it's just the easiest for me to use because it's what I've been using before. That's to say, though, in terms of your DAW, which is basically your digital audio workstation, it doesn't matter. It really doesn't. At the end of the day, what matters is if the DAW that you're using is comfortable for you and that you can work quickly. Because that's the other thing I'm learning in voiceover is, we need to have these super awesome, polished pieces to send out, and they need it done yesterday. It's a very quick kind of thing. Auditioning, for instance, the second you see the audition, you got to get on it and get that submitted, because you've got at least, at minimum, 50 other people, right? 50 other people that are submitting their audition. So you need to get in there really quick. But anyway, back to the equipment. So I'm using right now, I've got the laptop in front of me. I've got GarageBand playing right now. I've got it set to show me the time instead of the beats and the key, because, well, I'm not doing music. And then I have a Focusrite Scarlett Solo. It is the Gen 4. I think that's the newest one, the Generation 4, 4th generation. Yeah. So I've got that going into the laptop. And then I've got, and this is what I did not think would ever happen, I'm using a Shure SM58, which, if you are a musician or any sort of live performer, really, on a big stage, well, not even on a big stage, on any stage, really, any sort of live performer, chances are, if you don't know what the SM58 is, you still have used it. Because the SM58 is pretty much, it's the industry standard wired dynamic microphone for any sort of onstage production. It is arguably the first microphone that you should buy if you are getting into anything that requires a microphone, really. It is the standard studio microphone as well. The studio will have it in their arsenal typically. And why? If it's a live microphone, why is it sitting in a studio? Well, here's the thing. Couple reasons why it's amazing. One, it shares the same capsule as the SM7B, which, again, if you don't know what that is, that's pretty much the standard for podcasts, live streams, studio recordings. It's the workhorse. It is the workhorse microphone. But that thing costs like, what, $400, $500? I ain't got that kind of cash. So the SM58 shares the same capsule. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean it's going to give you the same exact sound, but because it's using that same capsule, it can get you pretty darn close. There's even on Dark Corner Studios, which is an amazing YouTube channel. I am loving watching that. He shows a simple modification that you can do to the SM58 to make it sound even more like an SM7B. And because one of the main differences between the two is the SM58 is going to have a transformer in it, whereas the SM7B does not. So that transformer, first of all, what's great about that transformer, you do get a little more gain out of the SM58. So you don't have to push your interface quite as hard in order to get your sound out. I'm one of those people, I hate that little bit of fuzz when you start to hit that gain up. I'm finding that I need to not be so focused on that, because when I listen back, when I'm using my in-ear monitors that I use some Audio-Technica in-ear monitors, and then I also, of course, have some over-ears from Sterling Audio over at my desk, but I've been using my in-ear monitors a lot, and those, because of the way that they're set up, I can hear everything, everything's kind of pinpointed and picked out. It's almost like, the best way I can describe using those earbuds is, it's almost like if you take a picture and you take out every single color individually and spotlight those colors. Like you have, almost spotlights on each individual color. That's kind of the best way I can describe listening on those in-ear monitors, is that I can hear it's almost like every frequency is on its own channel. So I'm hearing that fuzz pretty pronounced in those. But then when I switch over to my phone, I don't hear it. When I switch over to my MacBook speakers, which, by the way, really surprised that these speakers are as good as they are on a laptop. But anyway, listening there, I don't hear it. Listening on in the car, I don't hear it. So it's like, I need to stop being so focused on that. But point is, I want to try not to have to push the gain on the interface at all, because I don't want that fuzz. I don't want that little bit of that in the background, right? So that transformer is cool for that. But if you take the transformer out, it will give you a closer sound to the SM7B. And again, you're not going to get the exact same sound, right? There's just no way, because it's a completely different thing. Because the other thing that's different, and I never thought about this with microphones, is the housing makes a difference. You know, those the design of them, creating certain air gaps and everything like that, is going to affect the vibration of that capsule, is going to affect how the sound is going through that microphone and processing the sound. You know, something as simple as an air gap can make a huge difference. As you can see very obviously in pictures, the SM58's casing a lot smaller than the SM7B's casing. So there's going to be a different dynamic going on there. Not to say, though, that it's not an amazing alternative. Like, it's an amazing alternative to the SM7B if you don't have a ton of money. I mean, you can get the SM58 used, which, by the way, resale value as well. The SM58 holds its resale value because literally everybody wants this microphone. So they just raised it, I think, to $110 brand new, which is a great price. $110 brand new is amazing for a microphone that you could get work with, but you can also find them used. And I usually, you know, at least in my market, I usually see them for about $80, $70, you know, so it's not a huge, you know, like half off kind of discount, but that's pretty nice. 70 or 80 bucks for a microphone that could get you voiceover work and get you paid. You know, one cheap job, you've paid for the microphone and you still have money in your pocket. So I use the SM58, and the reason why I'm using it now too is because after a month of, you know, getting set up and working things out, I decided I wanted to have kind of an easy kind of setup by my bed just in case, because I am in that mode where it's like, hey, if an audition comes, I want to get on it, right? Doesn't matter where I'm at. I don't even want to have to get up to get to my desk. So I set it up here by the bed, and I used it for a few auditions, and I've got them. Go figure. And I'm sure, again, it's not just because of the mic. You know, I mean, let's dispel that kind of myth where if I just get a better mic, I'm going to get a job. Or if I just get a better mic, my sound will be better. Yeah, a mic is going to help if you have a better mic. You know, if you're using one of those, you know, newer USB mics versus, using an SM58 with an interface, of course you're going to notice a difference. Yes, absolutely. But at the end of the day, what gets you the job? It's your acting. Okay? It's your acting. It really is. But the superstitious nature of me, well, no, I'm not superstitious, but you know, the superstition in me is like, okay, this is now my forever mic because it's the mic that got me my first jobs. So I'm using it as much as I possibly can. And actually, for the audiobook that I'm doing, I am reading it on this very SM58. That's nuts. I'm getting paid using a microphone that is, you know, by all accounts versus the ones that everybody else uses, it's a pretty cheap microphone. But yeah, so I used it because, again, you can model it to sound very similar to that SM7B, which is what like so many people use. So this is also a great option, you know, if you are running like a podcast or anything and you have multiple people on it, you know, you want to have that consistent sound. So you want to have the same microphone for everybody, of course. But again, $400, $300 a pop for an SM7B, you've got, you know, a 3-4 person podcast. You're just to do that podcast, the microphones alone, you're looking at like $1,200. Like, what? Get out of town. It's a lot of money. But if you alternate that with the SM58 going into, you know, like a 4-channel interface, I mean, you're looking at, you know, like $600, maybe $700. The other reason why I like it too is, again, because it's designed for live performance. It does a lot to make sure that outside noise isn't getting into the microphone. It's focused on the vocals. It's focused on its main source of audio. So on stage, you've got those speakers on the sides of you, right? And that sound is going to be inundated, or that microphone is going to be inundated with that speaker sound. And that's where you get like that feedback when, the sound guy puts the gain up a little too high. That's where that feedback's coming from, is it's literally feeding what is being recorded from the microphone is going into the speakers. The speakers are obviously bringing that audio back out, and that audio back out is going back into the microphone. So that's where that feedback's coming from. So the SM58 is designed to reject that speaker noise and the guitars, the other amps, the drums, everything on the stage. It is designed, if it's not the main point of sound for that microphone, it's going to work to reject it. So it's a very focused microphone in terms of where it's going to receive that sound. So, right in the front of the microphone, that's where I'm talking right now. I do have it angled a little bit just because the only issue with this microphone that I ever have is the plosives, which, if you don't know what plosives are, it's just when you're saying P, like Peter Piper picked a peck of pickled peppers, something along those lines, those P's, you're actually pushing a lot more air out, and it's just like this puff of air. I say P again. And that puff of air going into the capsule is going to basically, for lack of a better term, it's going to glitch the capsule, right? It's going to artificially vibrate that capsule a little bit, which is going to bring a big low frequency into the source there. And that low frequency is going to cause that, that glitch. So I don't like the plosives. But there was a little trick that I learned from really all the YouTube videos. Mike Delgadio is amazing for this. He's the Booth Junkie. If you angle it, instead of having it right in front of your mouth, which I instinctively always want to do, especially with the SM58, to the point where even if it's not plugged in, I instinctively talk into a microphone. I'm just that kind of way. I'm weird. But when it's right in front of you, that air is going directly into the microphone, which is causing it to have those plosives. If you angle it just a little bit off, like maybe like a 45-degree angle, and you also have it down, facing just a tad bit down instead of directly or at worst up, you help reduce those plosives, because now the air, instead of the air going directly into the microphone, so the air is going straight out to the side of the microphone versus directly into the microphone. The other thing I did too is I have a windscreen that I put on the SM58, which I am so surprised because I think I spent like $6 on like a 4-pack like 5 years ago or something like that. This has been amazing for the plosives. I've been so surprised at how well it's been handling those plosives. But anyway, with the SM58, the polar pattern, which is basically where it's hearing the sound, because I mean, let's be real, a microphone is just a big ear. That's all it is. It's an electronic ear. The microphone, its polar pattern is, again, tighter. So it's designed to really just capture the sound right in front of it. And on the sides, it's going to reject a lot of that sound coming from the sides. A lot of times when you're watching those videos where they're reviewing the microphones, a lot of times when you're hearing the sound, you're hearing the sound actually bouncing off the walls around it if you're doing like a side test or something like that. That's a lot of times what you're hearing. You're not actually hearing it going into the microphone. You're hearing the sound hitting that wall over on the side, bouncing back and going into the capsule. So this has awesome rejection on the sides. That off-axis rejection is amazing. The rear is amazing for rejection. So that's why I've been using it. Because I am in a completely untreated space right now for the podcast. For my work, I do have kind of a jerry-rigged setup, but for my auditioning and for everything like that, I don't really have much. The place that I'm living in right now, my primary place to record is in a basement. So, as you all know, basements get super echoey. Now, there is a lot of stuff down here, which helps, which... Fun life hack. If you're a voiceover artist and somebody tries to complain that your room is messy, don't tell them that it's messy. Tell them that it's properly acoustically treated. Because even though I'm in a basement, which is, this big room, cement everywhere, a lot of surfaces for my sound to bounce off of and create that reverb, because there's so much stuff in the basement, a lot of that sound is being deflected. It's being absorbed by some things as well, because I have clothes and stuff down here. So it's helping keep that noise or that reverb from coming back into the microphone. But again, it's still a basement. So having the SM58 is really helping take away the reverb coming through because I'm in a basement. But I have found that if I'm using this in bed, which is what I'm doing, the reverb is a lot lower. I have a tool, I have a plugin called Clear, which I can actually take out room ambience and I can also take out reverb with it. It'll actually process it through. It's like I think they say it's AI driven or something. I don't know how it exactly works. I just like to use it. I don't really have to use it too much when I'm in bed. And reason why I'm finding is, of course, I've got a lot of sound absorbing material around me. I've got the bed itself, of course. So that's my floor. My floor is a big old bed. I've got blankets here. I've got a lot of pillows. So what I'll do is when I'm going to set up to record, I just start stacking the pillows on the wall. And the side, I've got kind of a privacy partition over on the side that I put up acoustic foam on over on my left. So that's helping with that. So really at the end of the day, the only part that isn't super treated over here when I'm actually doing things is going to be the ceiling, which I can do the little voiceover trick of making my little blanket fort in bed to record in. So I basically just put a blanket over my head and I can record that way to not worry about the ceiling. But yeah, so I have the ceiling and then I do have an open area directly in front of me that's leading out. But again, with the SM58, once my voice goes all the way over to that wall over there and bounces back, it's so weak by the time it gets back here that the mic doesn't even really pick it up. It's awesome. So that's why I have the SM58. I'm going to listen back to this because I should have done it. I didn't feel like trying to find them. I don't have any headphones on right now. So I'm not hearing how the audio is sounding as I'm talking. So I'm hoping that I didn't just waste about a half an hour with bad audio. But the other thing too is I'm going to listen back to this and see if I can hear the dog that's next door, because that's another thing. I don't have any soundproof, right? I don't have any soundproofing in my house. So that dog barking, which by the way, folks, if you're going to get into voiceover, don't live next door to somebody with a dog, especially when they never let the dog inside. I kid you not, this dog sometimes will bark for up to an hour. So I can't record when the dog is barking because the microphone that I want to use is very sensitive. So it picks up every single bark. The silence right now is I was seeing in the waveform if it was picking up her bark. We'll see. I do one other thing because, again, I don't like to have to drive the gain up. I don't like to have to turn those knobs up on my interface. I also have a FET head, a Triton FET head, which for those who don't know what that is, it's a different take on a cloud lifter, which, when you have an SM7B, you have to get a cloud lifter too. That's the other thing I didn't mention. That's another like $150, $200 right there. So, I mean, come on. So it's kind of like a cloud lifter where it provides, I think it's 10 dB, 10 decibels of gain, of clean gain, by the way, clean. So there's none of that when it does it. It gives clean gain. You plug it into the microphone, and I love the Triton versus the Cloud Lifter because I don't like the Cloud Lifter since it's a separate thing. I have to have 2 XLR cables instead of 1 and all this. I don't feel like dealing with that. So with the Triton FET head, because it's just literally just like this, it looks like a XLR joiner, really. It's got one female and one male XLR on either end, and it's just like this little rod. So I just plug that right into the microphone. I plug my XLR cable into my interface, and before it even hits my interface, it automatically has 10 decibels of gain on it. So I don't have to drive my interface quite as hard. It's nice. I found it on eBay for like $60. One of the best purchases I ever made. I love the audio that comes through it. And then I go to the interface that I have, which is the Scarlett Solo. Love using this. It's got some pretty cool stuff on it. It has a direct monitor, so you can have, I can actually hear what I'm saying. in real time. The other thing I really like about this one too is it has an air button, which I was like, what? It adds air, which you hear that sometimes when you're saying, oh, I want to add air to it. And really what that means is just EQ wise, it's just raising some of those higher frequencies up because it adds a little more, gives it a little more depth, a little more pronunciation, adding that air to it. So it has that air button, which before it even gets into my mix, it will add that a little bit. I normally don't like to do that when I'm recording. I mean, for live streams and for podcasts too, though, yes, absolutely, those are cool. But when I'm recording, you don't want to do anything. Like, you want completely raw, unfiltered, no bells and whistles at all as your source going into your DAW, right? So normally you don't hit that button, but yeah, so it adds that air. If you hit it again, it adds air and drive, which kind of boosts that signal up a little bit more, gives it a little more oomph again. So it has that button already built in, which is awesome. So I can turn that off on the fly. The exception for me not using it when I record, though, is when I'm using the SM58, because I have noticed if I put that air on the SM58, it kind of cleans, at least for me, for my ears when I'm listening, it cleans up the SM58, because I've been finding, for me, at least for my voice, that SM58, it muddies me a tad. I get a little bit of muddy when I listen back. So having that air already built into it before it even gets to my DAW, something about it, for me at least, it helps cut that muddiness a little bit, so I don't have to do as much processing afterward. Because that's the other thing too, not everybody's going to want you to do a lot of processing to your audio. They just want you to send it raw, and I want to have the best raw that I can possibly have. So I love that button. I talked a lot about that button. It's great too, though, because even though it is a Scarlett Solo, the new generation actually has 2 inputs. So it's great because, I also play guitar, and I like to do like acoustic performances and such. So it's nice because I have, for channel 1, I can plug in my acoustic guitar because it has a 1/4 inch input. And then for channel 2, I can have my vocals, so I can record both at the same time. Pretty cool. On the back end, though, like going back to where if you are running a podcast and you've got a bunch of people, the interface, I have another interface. It's a 4-channel interface. It's the Behringer, which everybody, by the way, little tangent, you'll hear Behringer all over the place. But if you look up their website, they actually have a YouTube video, and they tell you, because it's a German company, they tell you how to pronounce their name. And the name is Behringer. Behringer, not Behringer. Behringer, which I spent literally almost my entire music life thinking it was Behringer, but it's Behringer. So that's the way to pronounce it. Anyway, point is, I have a Behringer Euphoria UMC 404 HD. So I use that, and that's a great interface if you've got, a podcast going on, because you've got 4 individual channels. They pop into your DAW as 4 individual channels, and, you've got controls for all 4. So it's great. Love that one. Back to it, though. I have all this plugged in, and then, typical mic stand. And now I have a podcast going on in my bed. Some of the other equipment that I use, though, I kind of cross between 2 different microphones. So I have the MV7 Plus, which I think personally, they try to tell you not to use dynamic microphones if you can help it, but the MV7 Plus has been great for recording like e-learnings. Pretty good for audiobook narration. Pretty good for some commercial. But for the most part, anything that's going to be not over the top is what I should say. Like, not over the top performances. You want something that's going to give you a pretty clean, pretty flat audio. It's a great one. And it's also a great alternative to the SM7B if you don't want to shell out that kind of money. I think I got mine for $250 versus the 400 or whatever. So it's a little bit of a savings. You don't have to buy that cloud lifter. And the other thing I like about it is it also has USB. So it's XLR and USB, which they have different models. Some of them are, I think the MV7X is the XLR only model of it. So it's a little bit cheaper, but I like having that USB on it because, again, wherever I'm at, I don't have to worry about, oh shoot, I forgot my interface. I don't have to lug around an interface. I can just bring this with me. So if I'm traveling, I can easily just plug that mic in and get going. But on top of that, I also have, which by the way, the new model is also XLR and USB. I have the Rode NT1 5th generation. Now this microphone is amazing. And it's crazy to think because it's basically, the NT1 is an industry standard. If you go into a studio for voiceover, a lot of times they might have the MKH, the 416? Yes. The Sennheiser, the shotgun microphone that they use, that big kind of rod-shaped microphone. Or you'll have the Neumann U87 sitting there, which is a $3,600 microphone. But one of the other industry standards is the Rode NT1. And I've got that. Again, that microphone is about $250-ish bucks. Maybe 300. I can't remember. One of those two. But you can have, that, to me, that might be my forever mic, to be honest, because it is so awesome. And then in USB mode, which it has USB on it, it has 32-bit float, which has been a game changer for me, at least, because for like character work, there's going to be those times when you have to shout and everything. Well, I don't want to have to back away too far from the mic to do my shout, because then I'm altering how that's going to get processed into the microphone. It's going to pick up more room ambience that way because now I'm away from the microphone. It's going to pick up more of that reverb possibly. And that just affects, the overall equalization of it. So what's great about 32-bit float though, is if I do that shout and it clips, well, it's 32-bit float. So it actually didn't clip that completely out. It still retains the information of where that audio clipped. So if I lower the gain on it, if I bring it down, it retained all of that data. So I don't have to re-record. Game changer. It's amazing. And then the other great thing about it too is, let's say it is too quiet. Like if I'm going to have like a moment when I'm like really loud and then afterward, like I'm unhinged, right? As a character, like I'm shouting and shouting and shouting and shouting. And then I whisper. I'm just going to whisper now. And I need to whisper. And let's say that whisper is too low. When I'm bringing that up with most microphones, 24-bit or 16-bit, which is standard, when you bring that level up, you also introduce extra noise into that signal. Because it's basically, I akin it almost to when you take a picture and, you pop it into Photoshop or whatever, you want to make it bigger, right? Oh man, that picture is just too small. I need it bigger. So you just basically enlarge it, but you'll notice as you enlarge it, it degrades, right? The picture isn't quite as clear. It isn't quite as crisp. There's some of that digitization that you're starting to see, some of that almost like fuzz, right? Or that blur. And audio is no different. So if you've got a source that's too quiet and you're raising it up, you are going to introduce some of that noise in there, just like the noise that you see on a picture when you enlarge it. Which, by the way, crazy that sound and video, like there's so many correlations with them that I never thought to bring together until I started doing voiceover. But back to it. With 32-bit float, you don't have that as much because, again, it's retaining the data from down there. So all it's doing is when it brings that data up, it doesn't have to introduce that extra noise because it's not, it's like having a larger megapixel camera, really. If you got the camera that's big enough, has enough megapixels built in, when you enlarge it, you won't notice that degradation because it has enough megapixels to do that enlargement. So once again, I'm using my SM58 because I did get 2 jobs out of it now. And I'm actually reading the audiobook on the SM58. They liked the tone that I had. They liked, the overall quality of it. So I figure, you know what? The Audition had it. I'm just going to use this for the entire book, which is it's not a big book. It's only 4 chapters, not too long. I did chapter 1 already, and I'll probably just knock the whole thing out over the weekend right now and just get it done in an hour, a couple hours. Because again, it's not a long book. So using the SM58 has been amazing. I do have one of the reasons why I'm doing the podcast right now is because I have a bunch of other stuff coming. I've got I would say an SM57, which is another microphone, which typically people use that to like mic their amplifiers, right? But it's a great vocal mic too. Well, again, I don't want to shell out the $100-something for it. So I found the Waymic WM57 for $15, I think. It was $15 on Amazon. So I'm going to see how that works. But yeah, this has been killing time until that arrives, which actually I have a notification. Oh, it is out for delivery now. It'll be here soon. Awesome. That makes me excited. But yeah, I'm really excited to try that out and see how that works. All this to say, if you are getting into voiceover work, we'll start with the microphone. I want to make sure that everybody knows, look at the reviews, take a listen, all that good stuff. And that can help influence your decision, but don't let it define your decision, because here's the deal. Somebody who is doing a review on a microphone is doing the review with their voice. Microphones are just like ears. Some ears like to listen to Nickelback. Others do not. Sorry, Nickelback. I hate your vocals. Microphones are no different. Just like, again, some ears don't like the sound of Nickelback. Some do. Microphones, same thing. Some are going to like your voice. Some aren't. So that SM7B, for instance, again, what I found was I didn't like having to drive the gain up all, so much on it. And, the other thing too is if you're doing it for podcasting, for instance, you don't want to have to do a bunch of processing in your live stream because, you're taking away resources on your computer. So if you're gaming, God forbid you're gaming and you're, having a live stream from the same computer, and then now you've got all these extra EQs and compressors and everything involved on the software level. Well, now you're taking away resources and now your game's not going to run as well. So, not every microphone is going to work like that. Some microphones work great, some microphones don't. So the biggest thing is when you're going through a review, let that help inform your decision and maybe just inform what microphones you're going to try. Don't commit yet. Try the microphone. Because again, that microphone is an ear. Not every ear is going to like your voice. So make sure that you're trying it yourself. Microphones are only as good as the relationship between the microphone and the voice actor. So I've found, for instance, that again, with the MV7, great for the podcasting, but again, for my character work, it's not going to work very well. And I do have to do a lot of processing to it when I'm using it for anything else. So I don't want to use it for that, for anything, or I only want to use it for like audiobooks, where it just needs to be kind of a flat kind of sound. The SM58, same deal. Love it to death. It's a great microphone, and I feel like it makes my voice sound really good, so that's what I'm using, and it's a $100 mic. If this WM57 makes my voice sound like butter, if it makes it sound like gold, I have a $15 microphone that makes my voice sound like gold. I'm going to use it. Don't look at the price in terms of if it's good or not. There are plenty of microphones out there that are great for $100, $150. $250 is kind of my sweet spot, at least for me, because again, the Rode NT1's on there. The MV7 Plus is on there. Some shotgun mics that are pretty good are on there for $250. That's a good kind of area to kind of start in if you have the cash. If you don't, you could find pretty decent microphones for pretty cheap. And if they work with your voice, they're just as good as that $3,600 microphone. Right? So keep that in mind with the equipment, that in the end, it's just like anything else. When you're playing music, for instance, not every guitar is going to feel good in your hands. Not every guitar is going to sound good for what you're trying to achieve with it. Vocals, the microphone's the same exact thing. You're not going to use an MV7 Plus. You're not going to use an SM7B for character work. It's going to be meant for contained vocals. It's going to be meant for not a lot of deviation from volume. You're going to be trying to maintain a consistent volume throughout that recording. There's not going to be rapid shifts. Whereas with character work, you've got a lot of those rapid shifts. And you need that sensitivity as well, because the SM7B is not as sensitive as some of those condenser microphones. It's going to ignore, I wouldn't say ignore, but it's not going to process the frequencies quite as effectively for what you're trying to achieve. So it might not work out. So I went almost 50 minutes of my rambling, but I hope that I gave you a little bit of insight. This is basically my world now. I want to do this for my entire life. If I can say that my career is reading books out loud and making up characters and pretending, I mean, come on. Isn't that not going to be the best job in the world, or what? But if you made it this far through all my rambling, thank you so much for listening to this inaugural episode of my new podcast, which I'm calling Not Just the Voice, where we're diving into everything that's not just the voice of voiceover. It's everything else too. But again, thanks for coming on this journey with me, and I'm looking forward to giving you some more sound down the line. But until then, get in the booth, folks, and get reading.